Have you ever asked yourself why it's universally wrong to harm others without reason, and who decided this was the case? It's a question that probes deep into the heart of our existence. We live in a world that seems to be guided by a certain set of moral values and duties. These values are not just societal constructs, they seem to have an objective, universal nature. For instance, it's universally accepted that causing harm to children for fun is fundamentally wrong. But where do these values originate? They seem to transcend societal norms and human subjectivity, suggesting the existence of a higher moral standard. This standard, however, must be grounded in something or someone. It's not enough for it to float around, unanchored. If such a higher moral standard exists, wouldn't it make sense for it to be grounded in a moral being, perhaps one we might call God? If we live in a world created by God, then moral values are grounded in his nature and character. This perspective sees God as the ultimate source of moral law, the unchanging standard for right and wrong. He's not just a celestial rule maker, rather he embodies goodness, love, justice and truth. These values are not arbitrary but flow from his very nature, providing a solid foundation for morality. Now picture a world without God. Where does morality come from? It would be based on subjective human opinions or societal constructs which can vary greatly and change over time. What's considered right in one culture could be wrong in another. Without an absolute moral standard, isn't morality just a human invention, subject to personal interpretation or societal consensus? You see, the existence of God provides an objective moral compass, a universal standard of right and wrong that transcends human subjectivity. Without an absolute moral standard set by a divine being, can objective moral values and duties truly exist? What makes us human, and why should we all have equal rights? These pressing questions may have more theological roots than we often consider. The belief that human rights are inherent and inalienable is deeply embedded in our societal understanding, yet it's worth noting that this concept is commonly rooted in theistic perspectives. Theists argue that our human dignity and worth derive from being created in the image of God. We are seen as special objects of God's creation, and therefore we carry an intrinsic value that cannot be stripped away. This divine attribution of value provides a robust justification for the equal rights of all humans, regardless of their personal characteristics or societal standing. Without this divine grounding, justifying these inherent rights becomes a more challenging task. So, when we ponder over the universality of human rights, we might find ourselves asking, doesn't the belief in human dignity and worth find its grounding in the concept of a divine creator? Who holds us accountable for our actions? And why should we be moral in the first place? This question takes us to the heart of moral obligation and accountability. The theistic perspective posits that belief in God offers a foundation for moral duty that goes beyond mere human judgment and societal laws. God's existence, in this view, provides an ultimate accountability for our actions. It's not just about legal consequences or societal repercussions, but about aligning our actions with a higher moral standard. Now let's consider a world without God. In such a scenario, there is no ultimate accountability for one's actions. Actions would only bear earthly consequences, and the motivation for moral behavior could become self-serving or arbitrary. The question then arises, without a divine moral compass, where does our sense of duty and accountability originate? Is it just a social construct, or is there something more intrinsic to our human nature? Without God, where does our sense of moral duty and accountability come from? In a world without God, who decides what's right and wrong? This question brings us face to face with the problem of moral relativism. In a universe devoid of a divine moral lawgiver, critics argue that morality becomes a subjective construct, varying from one society or individual to another. It's rather like a ship without a compass, drifting on the vast ocean of human opinions and societal norms. Consider this: if what's right or wrong is merely a matter of personal opinion or cultural consensus, then who's to say that one perspective is more valid than another? This could lead to a world where the universal claims of human rights are undermined, as these rights would then be seen as products of cultural agreement rather than inherent aspects of our human nature. So, as we ponder, we might ask ourselves, Without an absolute moral lawgiver, could we not fall into a world of moral relativism, undermining the universal claims of human rights?